Hey there, curious minds. Have you ever wondered why you are drawn to certain brands and not others? Or why do you sometimes buy things you don't need? Well, you are not alone. Today, we are diving into a fascinating world of branding and consumer behavior. We'll explore 100 psychological facts that shapes how we interact with the brands and make purchasing decisions. So, get ready to learn some mind-blowing insights about yourself and the world around you. So let's start with power of color in the branding. Well, did you know that different colors can evoke specific emotions? For example, red often creates a sense of urgency, and which is why it's used in the clearance sales. Blue, on other hand, tend to build trust, and which is why many banks use it in their logos. Well, speaking of logos, our brains processes images 60,000 times faster than text. And this is why strong visual branding is so important for companies. Well, moving on to the pricing strategy. Have you noticed how many prices end in a 99? This is called psychological pricing. Our brains tend to round down, so we perceive 99 as significantly less than 100. Well, another pricing trick is the decoy effect, and this is when a third option is added to make one of the other options seems more attractive. For instance, a small popcorn for $3, a medium for $6, and large for $7. Suddenly, a large doesn't seem too expensive compared to the medium. Let's talk about the power of scarcity. When we think something is a limited supply, we want it more. And this is why limited time offers are so effective. Similarly, exclusivity can make a product a more desirable. And this is why some brands create member-only deals or invitation-only events. Well, have you heard of the mere exposure effect? It suggests that we tend to like things simply because we are familiar with them. And this is why brands aim to multiple touchpoints with the consumers. The more we see a brand, the more likely we are to choose it. Now, let's discuss the impact of social proof. We are more likely to do something if we see others doing it. This is why testimonials and the user reviews are so powerful in the marketing. Where related to this is a bandwagon effect. We have a tendency to follow crowd, and which is why bestseller labels can boost sales. Well, did you know that our brains are weird to remember stories better than facts? This is why many successful brands use storytelling in their marketing. Well, it helps create emotional connections with the consumers. Speaking of the emotions, studies shows that our purchasing decisions are largely driven by emotions, not by logic. We often make decisions based on how we feel and then justify them with the logic afterwards. Well, let's talk about the psychology of the free. The word free is incredibly powerful in the marketing. We are often willing to spend more to get something free, even if it doesn't make any logical sense. This is why buy one get one free offers are so effective. Well, have you heard of the choice paralysis? When we are presented with too many options, we can become overwhelmed and less likely to make decisions. This is why some brands intentionally limit their product offering. Now, let's discuss the power of reciprocity. When someone does something for us, we feel compelled to return the favor. And this is why free sample can be an effective marketing tool. Well, did you know that we are more motivated by the fear of losing something than the prospect of gaining something? This is called loss aversion. It's why don't miss out messaging can be so effective in the marketing. So let's talk about the endowment effect. We tend to value things more highly once we own them. And this is why many companies offer free trials, knowing that once we start using a product, we are more likely to want to keep it. Well, have you noticed how some brands associate themselves with a certain lifestyles? This taps into our desire for belonging and the self-expression. By buying these brands, we feel like we are a part of a particular group or lifestyle. Now, let's discuss the power of music on shopping behavior. Well, studies have shown that slow music in stores can lead to slower shopping and the more sales. Fast music, on other hand, can speed up the pace and shopping. Well, did you know that the way products are displayed can influence our choices? Items placed at the eye level tend to sell better than those at lower shelves. This is why premium brands often pay for prime shelf spaces in the stores. Well, let's talk about the psychology of the loyalty program. These programs taps into our desire for status and the recognition. The more we invest in the program, the more committed we become to the brand. Well, have you heard of the halo effect? This is when one positive attribute of a product influences our overall opinion of it. For example, if we think a product is beautifully designed, we might assume it works better too. Now, let's discuss the power of font on branding. Different font can evoke different emotions and associations. For example, serif font often convey traditions and the reliability, while sans serif fonts can appear more modern and clean. Well, did you know that our sense of smell is closely linked to memory and the emotions? This is why many brands use a signature scents in their stores or products. Well, let's talk about the power of personalization. We are more likely to engage with the content or offers that feel tailored to us. This is why many brands use the data to create personalized marketing messages. Well, have you noticed how some products come in bundles? This taps into our desire for a good deal. We often perceive bundles as a better value, even if we don't need all the items. Now, let's discuss the impact of social media on the branding. Platforms like Instagram and the TikTok have changed how brands interact with the consumers. They have created new opportunities for engagement and the influencer marketing. Did you know that we often judge products by their packaging? This is why many brands invest heavily in package design. The right packaging can make a product seems more premium and appealing. Well, let's talk about the psychology of urgency. Limited time offers or countdowns timers can create a sense of urgency that drives purchases. This taps into our fear of missing out. Well, have you heard of the paradox of the choices? While we like having options, too many choices can make us less satisfied with our decisions. This is why some successful brands offer a careful curated selection rather than endless options. Now let's discuss the impact of the brand personality. Brands that have a clear, relatable personality tend to connect better with the consumers. And this is why many brands use mascots or spokespeople to give their brands a face and a voice. Well, did you know that our perception of a brand can be influenced by other brands it associated with? This is called co-branding partnership. Well, let's talk about the power of consistency in the branding. Consistent messaging across all touchpoints helps build trust and the recognition. This is why successful brands have strict brand guidelines. Have you noticed how some brands use humor in their marketing? Well, humor can help a brand seem more relatable and memorable. However, it need to be used carefully to avoid offending anyone. Now, let's discuss the impact of user experiences on the brand perception. A smooth, enjoyable user experiences can significantly boost brand loyalty. And this is why many companies invest heavily in user interface design and customer services. Well, did you know that we often make decisions based on anchoring? This is why we rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive. For example, if we see a $100,000 watch first, a $500,000 watch seems reasonably priced in comparison. Well, let's talk about the psychology of the color combination. Certain colors pairs can create a specific feeling or association. This is why brands carefully choose their colors scheme to evoke the right emotions. Well, have you heard of the pratfall effect? This suggests that admitting minor flaws can actually make a brand seems more relatable and trustworthy. This is why some brands use self-deprecating humor in their marketing. Now, let's discuss the impact of nostalgia on branding. Many brands taps into nostalgic feeling to create emotional connections with the consumers. This is why we often see retro packaging or references to the past decade in the marketing. Did you know that our perception of time can influence our purchasing decision? For example, we are more likely to indulge in immediate pleasure when we feel time is limited. This is why treat yourself messaging can be effective. Well, let's talk about the power of social currency. We often buy things that we think will make us look good to others. And this is why many luxury brands focus on status in their marketing. Well, have you noticed how some brands create a sense of community around their products? This taps into our need for belongings. Brands like Harley Davidson have built strong communities that significantly boost customer loyalty. Well, now let's discuss the impact of sensory branding. Engaging multiple senses can create a more memorable brand experiences. And this is why some car manufacturer engineer specific sounds for their car doors. Well, did you know that we often make decisions based on cognitive ease? We tend to prefer things that are easy to think about. And this is why simple, clear messaging often works better than complex idea in the branding. Well, let's talk about the psychology of the brand name. Names that are easy to pronounce and remember tend to be a more successful. This is why many brands opt for simple, catchy names. Well, have you heard of the peak end rule? We tend to judge experiences based on how they felt at their peak and the end. This is why many brands focus on creating positive weeks and ending in the customer's interaction. Now, let's discuss the impact of social responsibilities on a brand perception. Consumers increasingly expect brands to take stands on social issues. This can significantly impact brand loyalty, especially amongst youngsters. Well, do you know that our mood can influence our purchasing decisions? We are more likely to make impulse purchases when we are in the good mood. And this is why many stores try to create a positive atmosphere. Well, let's talk about the power of aspirational branding. Many brands sell not just products but the promises of a better life or self. This taps into our desire for self-improvement and the status. Well, have you noticed how some brands use anthropomorphism? This is where human characteristics are attributed to non-human things. It can help create emotional connections with the products or brands. Now, let's discuss the impact of cultural differences on the branding. What works in one culture might not work in the another, and this is why global brands often adapt their strategies for different markets. Well, did you know that we often make decisions based on mental accounting? We tend to categorize money differently based on how we got it. And this is why found money, like tax refund, are often spent more freely. Well, let's talk about the psychology of the luxury branding. Luxury brands often use scarcity and exclusivity to increase desirability. This taps into our desire for status and the uniqueness. Well, have you heard of the IKEA effect? We tend to place higher value on products we have partially created ourselves. This is why some brands offers customization options. Now let's discuss the impact of the brand archetypes. Many successful brands align themselves with the universal character types like the hero or caregiver. This can help create a strong, relatable brand personality. Well, did you know that our decisions making can be influenced by cognitive biases? For example, confirmation biases lead us to favor information. Smart brands understand and sometimes leverage these biases in their marketing. Well, let's talk about the power of brand purpose. Brands with a clear purpose beyond profit often connect more deeply with the consumers. And this is why many brands highlights their mission or values in their marketing. Well, have you noticed how some brands use the power of the contrast in their marketing? By highlighting the differences between their products and competitors, they can make their offering seems more attractive. Now, let's discuss the impact of the brand extension. When done right, extending a brand into new product or new product category can leverage existing brand equity. However, it need to make sense to consumer to be successful. Well, did you know that we often make decisions based on primacy and the recency effect? We tend to remember the first and the last items in the list better than those in the middle. This is why many brands put their most important messages at the beginning and the end of their communication. Well, let's talk about the psychology of the brand loyalty. Loyal consumers often develop an emotional attachment to the brands, and this is why many brands focus on building long-term relationship rather than just making quick sales. Well, have you heard of a Badler-Meinhof phenomena? Once we notice something, we tend to notice it more often. This is why repeated exposure to a brand can make it seem more prevalent. Now, let's discuss the impact of the brand voice on perception. The way a brand communicates can significantly influence how it's perceived. This is why many brands have detailed guidelines for their tone of voice. Well, did you know that our perception of value is often relative? We judge the value of the things in a comparison to other things, not in a absolute terms. This is why comparative advertising can be effective. Well, let's talk about the power of brand rituals. Well, creating rituals around products or product use can increase brand attachment. Well, think about the rituals of putting a lime in a Corona beer. Well, have you noticed how some brands use the power of anticipation? Well, building excitement for products or product launch can significantly boost its success. And this is why many tech companies create a buzz before releasing the products. Now, let's discuss the impact of the brand authenticity. Consumers increasingly value brands that seems genuine and transparent. This is why many brands are adopting a more honest conversation in a communication style. Well, did you know that our brain are weird to seek patterns and meanings? And this is why many successful logos have hidden meaning or symbols. It makes them a more interesting and memorable. Well, let's talk about the psychology of the brand communities. Strong brands communities can significantly boost loyalty and word of mouth marketing. This is why many brands invest in creating and nurturing customer communities. Well, have you heard of a concept of brand love? Some consumers develop deep emotional connections to brand, similar to the interpersonal relationships. This is the ultimate goal for many brands. So friends, we have covered a lot of ground today. These 100 psychological facts shows that just how complex and fascinating the world of branding and the consumer behavior is. Next time you are shopping, pay attention to how these principles might be influencing your decisions. Well, understanding these psychological factors can help us to become a more conscious customer. If you found this information interesting, please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights into the world of psychology and the marketing. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.